by Rudy Ruiz. Spoiler alert.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Drinks and a Movie podcast. I'm still on this fast. I don't know when this is going to come out related to other episodes, but it's February 1st as I record this. I just completed a 6-day fast, so I'm not drinking right now, so there won't be any drinks for this one. But we are going to do a triple feature episode. I'm going to talk about a few Mario Bava films that I've watched recently that I just wanted to talk about and get my little reviews in because I'm quite the Mario Bava fan. So I figured I'll do the 3 movies. I was going to do 2, but I'll bang out 3 of them since I don't know that I have a whole lot to say. And since I'm not doing the drink, it'll probably still be a somewhat short episode. So let me see if I can bring this mic down a little more. So I'm going to be talking about Black Sabbath, Rabid Dogs, aka Kidnapped, and Shock.
Do you believe in ghosts?
This is the night when fear and horror walk hand in hand.
This is Black Sabbath.
Starring the incomparable Boris Karloff, the personable Mark Damon, and lush and lovely women, even though one is from the netherworld, a vampire, a Vurdalak. Black Sabbath, as ancient as superstition, as modern as the telephone.
How nice you look with that towel around you. You always did have a beautiful body. Beautiful. A body to drive someone crazy.
Who are you? Who?
Black Sabbath. The bare truth about the unbelievable, such as the brilliant beauty of a priceless jewel that holds within the body of a buzzing fly a vengeful woman's murderous spirit. Only on the 7th night of the 7th full moon can the living see the lifeless undead.
I am hungry.
Is he man or vampire? An adventure into black magic that goes beyond the boundaries of the supernatural. And a man's devoted love is welcomed by a woman's deadly lust for his blood.
So first, let's start with Black Sabbath. This one is from 1963, and this was his anthology film, and Boris Karloff stars in this one. So this follows 3 stories. There's The Telephone, which is about a woman who's home alone and she gets disturbing phone calls from a prisoner, someone that has to deal with her past who's kind of stalking her and giving her phone calls. And then we kind of go on from there. So a little thriller, just a few characters, really kind of contained one space. I did really like that one. The second one is The Warlock, which is a vampire story set in, I forget which century, but it's more of a period piece, and it follows a family that is trying to defend themselves from a vampire. And that one actually stars Boris Karloff. And then the third one is, I'm forgetting, A Drop of Water, which is about a woman that steals, there's a dead medium, and this woman steals like a jewel from this dead medium and is now haunted. So 3 stories, and Boris Karloff acts as kind of the Rod Serling of this, where he talks a little bit in the beginning. It's an anthology, and originally they had shot some sequences of him speaking about each story in between each movie, something you'd see in like John Carpenter's Body Bags, right? But apparently it was cut out. And I did learn that there's actually a couple different versions of this where the stories are actually mixed up. So my DVD, I have like a little Mario Bava box set. I need to get them all on Blu-ray. I have some of the movies on Blu-rays, but I saw this sick box set. It had to be at least like 10 movies in Amoeba Records recently. I guess it was a limited edition, but it was, I think most is not his whole filmography, but I feel like most of it, at least all the like more horror, thriller, giallo stuff. And I really want that box set, even though I think I own all those movies already, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2. But anyway, I digress. So the stories are a little bit different. In mine, the order was The Telephone, the waterlock and then the drop of water. So the telephone one I really liked. I'm actually going to try not to get into too many spoilers with this one, because Mario Bava can be a little twisty with his ending sometimes. If you've seen like A Bay of Blood, I think you got to know what I mean. And I like that, and I don't want to rob anybody of that. So if you can find these, if you're into like Italian thriller, horror, giallo movies, then definitely watch them. I also love Mario Bava's cinematography. I like when a director can pull off directing and also being the cinematographer, and handling both with a lot of skill. And I think his skill is really put on display with this telephone segment, which, man, it's really simple, but it was inspiring to me. I think it's a nice little good thriller short film. Again, one kind of location. This lady is getting these phone calls. We get some twists and turns when her friend gets involved. And they tell you very early on that, things are not quite what they seem with her friend. So you think it's going to go one way, and then it doesn't quite do that. So it's pretty interesting. I'll spare you all the details, but this one isn't as lavish in its color like some of Mario Bava's other work in terms of cinematography, which is one of the things I like about him, his use of color and shadows. This is more straightforward, but so much of it is just, I don't know. He just really knows how to build tension and atmosphere with his camera movement and just the production design. Like I was showing my friend this segment, and we just talk about, man, just the room and the spaces and all the art direction and production design. Everything looks so good. Like they really know how to live and decorate out there. It just all looks super rich. And I'm talking purely the environment, So it's a nice little thriller. It's not really scary or anything like that. But a nice little thriller, just works as a good segment, as a solid short film. And the next one is the longest segment. That's The Waterlock with Boris Karloff. This is, again, the longest segment, and the one that I was honestly, I gotta say, kind of bored with. It just didn't really do it for me. I think, he does use more color in the cinematography, and again, it's a period piece, so we're more in this like cabin, and there's these like period costumes that are a little bit older in this family, and there are some really creepy shots in this one, but story-wise, it just didn't really do it for me. So there's the legend of this Waterlock, which is this, this vampire-type monster that will, it's a vampire story. Suck your blood, then you'll be a vampire too, and this and that, and it's going to go after whoever it loves most or something. And so Boris Karloff turns out to be this thing, and he comes back to the family, and he's trying to infect and kill them all. And, they kind of turn on each other, some of them, like the mom and the father. And there is a really creepy shot. Like there's a little boy that gets, I'm going to, spoil it, gets killed pretty quickly by the Waterlock. And there is a really creepy shot. If I remember correctly, they bury him. And then at night, the mother and the father are asleep. And then you just hear the voice of this boy outside. It's like windy, and they're in the woods and calling out to the mom. And this shot is like etched in my brain. It would have really freaked me out if I saw it as a kid. But he comes up to the door, and the camera's behind him, and he's like banging on the door. And I don't know, just the way it looks, he almost doesn't even look like a real person. It looks like a doll or like animatronic. The way the movement is like kind of still and just weird. And I really love that because it just added this whole creepiness to it. I don't know if I'm sure it was the actual little boy, but something about the movement just really stood out to me and just looked very, unnatural, and it added to the creep factor. And there's some great close-ups. Again, you get some nice color. He really knows how to light, man, and just make all the women look so good and just smooth and nice. And like he can hit people with hard light, and you can tell because of the shadows, how kind of crisp the shadows are. But they just really knew how to use hard light back then. And I love that. That's something that I want to really learn to do with my own cinematography, is how can I use hard light and like still get a really nice flattering look, But yeah, this one overall I thought was just kind of fine. Some creepy shots and close-ups, and he does this move a few times where he'll put people, and I've seen this in other films of his, and I love it. It's kind of a signature move. It almost reminds me a little bit of the double dolly that Spike Lee does, where the character will be like on the dolly kind of moving towards you. But in this, it's not in the sense where like the camera's tracking with the character. It just looks like the character is kind of sliding towards towards the camera. Wayne's World did that in a really funny way. If you've ever seen the movie Wayne's World, when he's trying to avoid his ex-girlfriend or whatever. But yeah, so that's the Waterlock. Kind of fine. Not my favorite. That would be my least favorite of the three. And then I think the best one was the last segment, the Drop of Water. Definitely the creepiest, scariest one. Again, moments that are like etched in my brain. I think everybody, if you're into horror stuff and you haven't seen it, you should watch it. If you're a super deep horror fan, it's an old movie, right? It's probably not going to blow you away. But again, atmosphere, creep factor, you get more of that giallo, different colored lighting that's like kind of arbitrary and doesn't necessarily make sense, but he still creates this world and you go along with it. And we see the strongest use of color, I think, in this movie, and brilliant wide shot compositions, use of zooms. This is where the woman, I forget, she was a nurse or something. And yeah, I think she's a nurse and she's going to this medium that died. But the way this frail, medium, old woman looks, the makeup, or I think they just built a doll. That's sort of like they built some kind of doll to look like a person. It's such a like unsettling, creepy face. And it just sitting there in the bed, kind of staring at you. And oh man, it's just a brilliant, brilliant shot. And every time they cut to it, it's just like really freaky and creepy. And then this lady steals the ring. And then of course she goes home and there's water dripping and all these noises happening and these little haunts, and then we see, the lady, the medium witch or whatever she was, is like now haunting her and she pops up in different places. And yeah, it's good. This is definitely the best one. I think in the other version of Black Sabbath, that's the segment that goes on first. And I think the Waterlock is the segment that ends it. I'm glad that I saw it in the order that I did, because I just felt, at least for me, since the Drop of Water one was my favorite and the scariest, I think it works in the end. I think I would have been disappointed by the other two segments if I saw that one first. I think I would have been expecting more. It makes sense that the Waterlock would be last, I guess, with it being the longest segment. Yeah, the Drop of Water one is a banger. And I don't even know if it's the same length as Telephone or shorter. I should have looked into that. But I feel like those two segments fly by pretty quickly. Like they're good, simple, really effective, like horror short films. And, it really inspired me. I love his work. So yeah, if you haven't seen Black Sabbath, give it a shot. I think it's on Tubi for free. Otherwise, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube and stuff. It shouldn't be too difficult. So now let's move on to Kidnapped, aka Rabid Dogs. So this is from 1974, and my version, the Blu-ray I got, is called Kidnapped, which I think is a pretty terrible title. Rabid Dogs is way better, but I didn't realize this. I thought it would just, because a lot of these movies will have a lot of alternate titles based on what country they're released in and all that. But this does have two different versions of the movie. So mine is the most recent kind of restored version. I guess apparently they... I don't know. They restructured it slightly different, and they also added like a whole new score. And I do like the score, and I like the ending track especially. But yeah. So I guess I got to find a copy of like Rabid Dogs to see how different it really is. That is the much better title. I like the poster art for Rabid Dogs too. This might be up there with one of my favorite Bava movies. I think I would rank this one pretty high. It starts off immediately with action where these guys rob, what was it? It was like a pharmaceutical place. It doesn't really matter. But they do this robbery. It gets jacked up. Their driver gets killed. So these three guys are trying to escape. They're narrowly escaping the cops, and they take a hostage. This movie is very violent too, by the way. They take a hostage, this young woman, and then they end up hijacking this car with a man and his 6th son. So now it's the 3 criminals and these 3 hostages that are all in this car. And this is kind of in a way like a road trip movie, where from that point on, the bulk of the movie is just them in the car. So it's a very contained, like mostly single location, pretty claustrophobic. It's amazing how many different shots and angles they can get out of a pretty small car, with like 6 of these people. And I love that concept of just, the the dad trying to get his son to the hospital. His son is, on some sleeping meds because he's super sick and all that. And he's got to get him to safety. But now these guys put a monkey in the wrench, and they also have this lady with them too. I think the cast is great. There's an interesting dynamic with all 3 of the criminals. One is definitely the leader who's got like a clear head on his shoulders. The other 2 are pretty unpredictable, which adds a lot of tension to the movie because you never know when they're going to snap and just do something crazy. And they set that up well really early on. So anytime they're talking or they're giving a certain look or someone says something they don't like, they're like, oh shit, are they going to like botch this whole thing and just kill someone right now? So really good tension building in this one. Again, especially for mostly taking place in one, vehicle the whole time. This is one where I don't want to give away the ending because it's another banger ending. I loved it so much. You guys just need to go and watch it. So if you're into Bava or this, these Italian films, watch this movie. This one isn't horror. It's more of a crime movie, right? Like a crime, it says psychological thriller on IMDb. Sure, we can take that. But more of a crime thriller, but it's very good. And this apparently, they shot this in 1974, but for different reasons. I guess a financier passed away and it got caught up in some kind of limbo where it wasn't even released until the mid 90s. I think 95 or 98, something like that. So that's pretty crazy. Imagine making a movie and it not coming out for like 20 some years later. It's pretty gnarly to me. And I guess that's why we have 2 different versions too, because then eventually in the 2000s, Lamberto Bava, his son, and someone else went and decided to do kind of a restoration of it and change the title. But this is a good one. I think the actors are all really great. There are some moments, where they're, assaulting the woman, of course, in the car. That can be a little hard to watch. It does become a lot. Like it does get maybe a little repetitive at times, but I think they do enough to keep it interesting and adding new problems to their journey. I like a movie about people trying to go from point A to B, and then it should be simple, but all these problems keep coming up and they have to like hide, who and what they are and what they're doing. It kind of reminds me of the, now that I think about it in a way, just that basic concept of getting from A to B with a lot of problems is the Hellbenders, the Sergio Corbucci movie that I love. That's another kind of, that formula of we got to go from here to there. We have to hide the money, and we're going through enemy territory, and then just problem after problem arises. So that is Rabid Dogs, aka Kidnapped. Great Bava film. I rank this one pretty high. I think eventually when I see a couple more of his movies, at least in the horror or thriller genre, I'll probably do a big Mario Bava ranking video. But some of them I gotta rewatch again.
Ciao Marco! Salve giovanotto, come stai?
Bruno non è mica mio padre, è il secondo marito di mia madre, non lo sapevi? Ti devo uccidere.
Non essere così nervosa. Non c'è motivo, sono passati 7 anni ormai.
Sì, lo so, ma per un attimo ho avuto la sensazione di vedermelo davanti.
Dora, abbiamo fatto un patto.
Sì, vorrei vedere te al mio posto. All'improvviso ti dice mamma devo ucciderti.
Now we're going to go into 1977's Shock. This was Mario Bava's last film. I think he passed away maybe mid-production or right after they finished it. And he co-directed it with his son, Lamberto. Mario also does the cinematography for this one. I forgot to mention, I did read that he had initially hired another cinematographer to do Rabid Dogs, but supposedly fired him partway through to do it himself because they just didn't have the budget. I guess it was a pretty low budget film, which for a low budget movie, very well done. But anyway, Shock follows a couple that's terrorized by their house is haunted. So they move back to her house. She's dating this pilot guy and she has a son. I think he's 8 years old. I'm forgetting his name right now. Marco. So they go to her old house and she wasn't really too thrilled to be back there, but her guy she's dating right now, her partner, really wanted to push for them to be there. And so she has a son, Marco, who's from a previous relationship. His father died. And what's interesting about this movie is it's kind of a possession film. I guess it is a possession film where this house is haunted by the father. And we're going to find out throughout the movie. I'm not going to spoil this one. We'll find out why and like the details on what happened. This one's not as like it's a little twisty, I guess, a tiny bit, but they reveal the details as we go or in the later part of the movie, which I think is actually kind of cool and interesting. But Marco is like possessed kind of where, yeah, he's like possessed by his father. So he's doing weird things like kind of walking around and cutting up her underwear, doing this or like talking to her a certain way and suddenly be mad. I don't know. You just have to see it. I watched this a few weeks ago, so I'm kind of forgetting details, but I think this kid, David Cullen Jr., was a good actor. And I thought this was a really interesting kind of take on a possession movie, not like a demon or exorcist type stuff. And it's not even like he's fully possessed. It's just he kind of gets like compelled to do these things through this spirit. And we find out that he's been kind of communicating, in one way or another with this ghost of a father. So just a good like haunted house kind of ghost movie. There are some genuinely creepy moments and creepy shots. There's a great part where the son, Marco, this is like kind of in the back third of the movie where, everything's been building up to, this one stars Daria Nicolodi, by the way, was in Deep Red as Dora. She's the mother, where the son Marco is running up to her. And then all of a sudden it's like the father pops up and grabs her, and they do that kind of thing a couple of times. And I just thought it was like a really great in-camera cool effect and shot. And yeah, Mario Bava was just full of cool ideas. Yeah. I don't remember much of the score for this one. The music didn't there's a theme that plays a lot, but it didn't really, impact me in a very meaningful way. But yeah, I think this is, a decent one to watch. I don't rank it super high in my Mario Bava in the filmography. I do like the ending. I like what it builds up to. I like the reveal. We kind of think it's going to be one thing. Again, he kind of changes it up on us a little bit. And the last shot, I just think is amazing. The last shot's really good. I love it with the little boy and the tea. You'll know if you end up watching it, what I'm talking about. But I just thought it was a kind of a fun way to end it. It ends it on a weird, like kind of humor, it's bummed out. People got like murdered, but it's kind of like funny and almost kind of cute in a way. But yeah, Shock from 1977. If you like a good like haunted house movie or like ghost movie kind of stuff, then I think this one's definitely worth watching. Again, great cinematography, not too crazy on the colors. It's more grounded. It's not like something you see in Drop of Water or Blood and Black Lace or Hatchet for the Honeymoon or anything like that. It's just more straightforward cinematography, but it's great. As always, he knows how to do it. I wish I could learn from him what I would do to, spend the day on the set of Blood and Black Lace or something. But yeah, everybody, that's going to be a wrap on this triple feature episode. I do recommend all of these movies. I would have to say of the three, Rabid Dogs, aka Kidnapped, is probably my favorite of these three. But I really like that Drop of Water segment from the anthology Black Sabbath, which apparently is where the band took their name from. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's a wrap on this one, everybody. I will see you all soon. Thanks for listening. Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Drinks and a Movie podcast. You can now find us on Instagram at Drinks and a Movie Pod, where we'll be posting photos from all the various films that we discuss. You can also email us at drinksandamoviepod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and thank you for listening.